The first time I noticed Grandma Eliza was different wasn't during her loud laugh, or the way she could make an entire room feel warm just by walking in. It was the suitcase. It sat in the corner of her bedroom like it had been placed there on purpose. Not tucked away, not hidden, not shoved under the bed like old luggage usually is. No, this one was upright, facing the room, almost like it was standing guard. A faded blue suitcase with cracked leather edges, rusted buckles, and a sticker on the side that said, New Orleans 1968. I was 12 when I asked her about it. Grandma, I said, pointing at it. What's inside? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slowly turned her head toward the suitcase, like it was a person she didn't fully trust. Her eyes softened, then darkened, then softened again like a memory had just walked through her mind. That, she said finally, is a box of storms. I blinked. Storms? Grandma Eliza nodded once. The kind that don't make noise outside. The kind that live in people. That was Grandma. She never spoke like other adults. She spoke like every sentence had a secret message inside it. I moved closer. Can I see? She walked over to her dresser, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a small silver key attached to a red thread. Then she stared at me. Listen to me carefully, Ivy, she said, using my full name like she only did when something was serious. If I open this suitcase, you have to promise me something. I swallowed. Okay. You don't laugh. I won't. You don't interrupt. I won't. And you don't walk away in the middle. I nodded again, feeling my heart pound for no reason I could explain. Grandma Eliza leaned down, slid the key into the lock, and turned it. The buckle popped open like a quiet sigh. She lifted the lid slowly. Inside was not clothes, not jewelry, not money. Inside were dozens of letters tied with ribbon, black and white photographs, a small tin box, and a folded red scarf that looked like it had been kissed by time itself. I stared. Grandma Eliza picked up one of the letters. Your mother doesn't know about this suitcase, she said softly. That shocked me. My mom knew everything about Grandma. She lived 5 minutes away and visited almost every day. She cleaned Grandma's kitchen, fixed her curtains, helped her pay bills. How could she not know? Why not? I whispered. Grandma Eliza held the letter like it was fragile. Because some things are too heavy to hand down. She sat on the edge of her bed and patted the spot beside her. I climbed up. She opened the letter carefully. The paper was yellow and thin, like it could crumble if you breathed too hard. And at the top, in messy handwriting, it said, Eliza, if you ever forgive me, you'll read this. Grandma didn't read it out loud. She just stared at it for a long time. Then she looked at me. You ever been betrayed, Ivy? I frowned. Like when my best friend told everyone. Grandma smiled slightly. That's betrayal's baby cousin. Then she looked back down at the letter. I'm talking about the kind of betrayal that changes the shape of your life. My throat tightened. Grandma began to speak, not reading the letter, but remembering. When I was 17, she said, I ran away. My eyes widened. You ran away? Grandma Eliza nodded. I couldn't imagine it. Grandma was always calm, always wise, always in control. She seemed like the kind of person who had never made a reckless choice. But then again, the suitcase existed. I ran away from my father, she continued, because he had a plan for me. What plan? To marry me off to a man named Henry Caldwell. I made a face. That sounds like an old man name. Grandma chuckled. He was old, 35. My mouth fell open. That's like ancient. Grandma laughed properly now. It felt ancient at 17. But why would your dad do that? Grandma's smile faded. Because Henry Caldwell owned half the town, she said. And my father was the kind of man who measured love in dollars. I didn't know what to say. Grandma reached into the suitcase again and pulled out a photograph. It showed a young girl standing in front of a house with white pillars. Her hair was pinned back. Her eyes were sharp. Even though the photo was old, I recognized her immediately. It was Grandma, but not the Grandma I knew. This Grandma looked like she had fire in her veins. Wow, I whispered. You were beautiful. Grandma smirked. I was dangerous. I giggled. No, you weren't. Grandma leaned closer to me. Ivy, you ever seen a woman with nothing to lose? I shook my head slowly. She nodded. Exactly. She placed a photo in my lap and continued. I had a best friend back then, she said. Her name was Rose. Like flowers? Yes, Grandma said. And she smelled like vanilla all the time. Like she was born with sweetness in her skin. Grandma pulled out another photograph. Two girls stood side by side, arms linked, smiling like the world couldn't touch them. "This is Rose," Grandma said, tapping the photo. Rose had curly hair and a wide grin. Her eyes looked like trouble in the best way. "She helped you run away?" I asked. Grandma nodded. "She packed my bag. She stole her brother's car keys. She told me, 'Eliza, if you stay here, you'll die slowly.'" I stared at the photo. "Where did you go?" Grandma's eyes drifted to the suitcase again. "To New Orleans." The sticker made sense now. "What happened there?" I asked. Grandma inhaled deeply. And for the first time in my life, I saw my grandmother hesitate, like she wasn't sure she wanted to let me into this part of her heart. Then she spoke. "I fell in love." My heart jumped. "With Grandpa?" Grandma Eliza's face went still. "No," she said softly. The air changed. I suddenly felt like I had stepped into a room where someone had been crying. "Then who?" I whispered. Grandma reached into the suitcase and pulled out the red scarf. She held it up gently. "This belonged to him," she said. "His name was Jonah." Jonah. I had never heard that name in our family. Not once. Not in stories. Not in photos on the wall. Not in any conversation. It was like he had never existed. But he did, because Grandma's hands were shaking. "Jonah was a street musician," Grandma said. "He played trumpet like it was part of his soul. He didn't have much money, but he had a smile that could fix broken people." I swallowed. "Rose and I stayed in a small rented room above a bakery," Grandma continued. "We worked in the mornings, cleaning tables, washing dishes, and at night, we'd sneak out to listen to music on the streets." Her voice softened, like she was watching it all again. "That's where I met Jonah," she said. I could picture it. The warm lights, the trumpet sound floating through the air like magic. Grandma in her younger body, walking toward a man who didn't know he would become her storm. "Did he love you?" I asked. Grandma's eyes shone. "He loved me like I was a miracle," she whispered. "And I loved him like I had been starving. I didn't know love could sound like that." Grandma folded the scarf carefully and placed it back in the suitcase. Then she pulled out the small tin box. She held it in her palm. "This," she said, "is where the storm begins." My heart started beating faster. She opened the tin box. Inside was a ring. Not a diamond ring. A simple silver ring with a tiny engraved letter, J. I covered my mouth. "He proposed?" Grandma nodded. I smiled without meaning to. "That's so romantic." Grandma didn't smile back. "He proposed," she said, and I said yes. Then she closed the box and looked at me with a pain that made my stomach twist. "But then Rose," she whispered. "Rose what?" I asked. Grandma swallowed hard. "She did something," Grandma said slowly, "that I never recovered from." My hands turned cold. "What did she do?" I whispered. Grandma looked away. Then she spoke in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "She told my father where I was." I froze. "What? Why would she do that?" Grandma's jaw tightened. "Because Rose was in love with Jonah too." I felt like the room tilted. "No," I whispered. "No way." Grandma nodded once, like she had accepted this pain long ago but still felt it in her bones. "She didn't just love him," Grandma said. "She wanted him, and she couldn't stand that he chose me." My chest hurt. "That's horrible," I said. Grandma nodded. "It was." "So what happened?" I asked urgently. "Did your dad come get you?" Grandma's eyes filled. "He sent men," she said. My throat tightened. "Man?" Grandma nodded. "One night," she said, "Jonah walked me home after music. He kissed my forehead at the bakery door and told me he'd see me the next day." Grandma paused. Then she looked straight at me. "But he never came back." I gasped. "What do you mean?" Grandma's voice broke. "I mean," she whispered, "they took him." The room went silent. I couldn't breathe properly. "Who took him?" I asked. Grandma's lips trembled. "My father's man," she said, "because he couldn't drag me home if Jonah was still holding my heart." I stared at her. My sweet grandma, my cookie baking, blanket knitting grandma. She had lived through something like this. "What did they do to him?" I asked, my voice shaking. Grandma closed her eyes. "I don't know," she whispered. "And that's the cruelest part. I never got to know. He vanished like a song cut off mid-note." Tears rolled down her cheek. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I could. I hugged her. Grandma Eliza held me tightly like she had been waiting for someone to hold her for 50 years. After a long moment, She pulled away and wiped her face. Then she looked at the suitcase again. And then she said, Rose showed up at our room crying. I clenched my fists. I hate her. Grandma sighed. I hated her too. What did she say? I asked. Grandma's eyes turned sharp again, that fire returning. She said, Eliza, I didn't mean for this to happen. I scoffed. Liar. Grandma nodded. I slapped her so hard her lip bled. I blinked. Grandma. She shrugged. Some sins deserve a mark. I didn't know whether to be shocked or proud. Then Grandma continued. She begged me to come back home, Grandma said. She said my father was furious, that Henry Caldwell was waiting, that if I didn't return, my family would be ruined. Grandma leaned closer to me, and I told her something. What? I asked. Grandma's voice turned cold and steady. I told her, I hope you spend the rest of your life missing something you can never get back. I felt chills. Grandma reached into the suitcase and pulled out one more letter. This one was sealed. Rose sent me letters for years, Grandma said. Begging, apologizing, explaining. Grandma stared at the sealed envelope, but I never opened them. She handed it to me. And now, she said, you're old enough to help me decide. I stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Me? I whispered. Grandma nodded. Because I'm tired, Ivy. My heart sank. She smiled sadly. I'm tired of carrying storms alone. I swallowed hard. Do you want to open it? Grandma looked at the suitcase. Then she looked at me. Then she said something that made my chest ache. I don't know, she whispered. I held the letter with both hands. And in that moment, I realized my grandma wasn't just my grandma. She was a whole story. And that blue suitcase was not just luggage. It was a heart that had been locked for decades. Grandma Eliza reached out and placed her hand over mine. Whatever is inside this letter, she said, will change something. And for the first time in my life, I understood that some stories don't start with once upon a time. Are you brave enough to know the truth? The letter that never got opened. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. It sat in my hands like it carried a living thing inside, something that could bite, or cry, or breathe. The wax seal was cracked around the edges, old and dry, and the name on the front was written in careful handwriting. Eliza May Hartwell, Grandma's full name. She watched the letter like she was staring at a doorway to a room she had refused to enter for 50 years. Ivy, she said softly, if you open it, you can't close it again. I nodded, but my fingers were already trembling. Should we do it? I asked. Grandma didn't answer right away. She looked past me, toward the window. Outside, the evening sun was fading into a soft orange, and the maple tree in her yard swayed gently, as if it didn't know the kind of storm sitting in this bedroom. Then Grandma whispered, open it. My heart jumped. I slid my thumb under the edge of the seal and peeled it back carefully. The wax flacked apart like dried petals. I unfolded the letter slowly, like it might scream if I moved too fast. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and the first line punched the air out of my lungs. Eliza, Jonah is alive. I froze. My eyes flicked up to Grandma's face, but she hadn't read it yet. Her gaze was still fixed on the paper like she didn't trust it. Grandma, I whispered. What? She asked, voice sharp with fear. I swallowed. It says Jonah is alive. Grandma's face went pale so fast it scared me. She grabbed the letter from my hands with trembling fingers and stared at it. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then she began to read. Her eyes moved quickly over the page, faster than I'd ever seen her read anything. The room filled with the sound of her breathing, short, uneven, like someone running from something they couldn't see. I watched her face change as she read. Her expression moved like whether shock, confusion, anger, grief. Then she stopped. Her hands shook so hard the paper rattled. Read it out loud, I begged. Please. Grandma's eyes filled with tears. She swallowed, then began reading in a broken voice. Eliza, if you're reading this, it means you finally opened one of my letters. I don't deserve that kindness, but I'm begging you. Jonah is alive. They didn't kill him. They took him. They beat him. They threatened him. But he survived. Your father's men dumped him outside Baton Rouge like trash. Jonah was found by a woman named Miss Corrine. She was a nurse. She took him in and saved his life. He asked for you. He cried for you. But by the time he could stand again, you were gone. Eliza, he thinks you left him. He thinks you abandoned him. And I know I caused that. I know my jealousy started it all. I know I'm the villain in your story. But please listen to me. Your father threatened me. He told me if I didn't tell him where you were, he'd ruin my family. He said he'd send my brother to prison for something. I was selfish. I was scared. I was weak. And I still did it. I regret it every day. I regret it in every breath. Jonah left Louisiana years ago. He went north. He became a musician in Chicago. People know his name there. He plays in clubs. He plays in churches. He plays like his heart is still looking for something. Eliza, he never married. He never stopped wearing the ring you gave him. Please, if you have any mercy left in your heart, find him. His last known address, Jonah Carter, South Side, Chicago, St. Bridget's Church Music Hall. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I can't die with this secret inside me. Rose. Grandma's voice cracked on the last word. Then she dropped the letter like it had burnt her. It fluttered down onto the bed like a dying bird. I stared at Grandma. She sat completely still, her hands clenched, her jaw tight, her eyes wide like she was staring at a ghost. Grandma? I whispered. She didn't answer. I crawled closer. Grandma, Jonah is alive. That sentence felt impossible. It didn't belong in this world. It didn't belong in her story. Jonah was supposed to be a tragic ending, a heartbreak, a forever loss. But he was alive. Grandma suddenly stood up so fast the bed shook. No, she said, voice trembling. No, 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 no. Grandma, I can't. She snapped. Not at me, but at the air. I can't do this. I can't. She paced across the room like a trapped animal. Her hands flew to her head. She looked like she couldn't breathe. 50 years, she whispered. 50 years I've mourned him. I stood up too. Maybe it's a lie? Grandma froze. She turned to me, eyes wild. You think she lied? I hesitated. I don't know. She was awful. Grandma stared at the letter again. Then she shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. Rose wouldn't write this if it wasn't true. How do you know? I asked. Grandma's eyes darkened. Because this is the cruelest truth she could give me. My stomach twisted. Grandma sank back down onto the bed. Her shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. It was like she was holding tears inside her body so tightly they had nowhere to go. Grandma, I said softly. What are you thinking? She whispered. He thought I left him. My heart broke. She covered her mouth, and one tear finally slipped out. Then another. Then more. I was 17, she whispered. I was a child. I was so stupid. I thought if I went home, I could come back for him. I sat beside her. I believed my father when he said Jonah would return, she said. He told me Jonah ran away. He told me Jonah wasn't worth it. He told me Jonah used me. Her voice turned bitter, and I believed him. I clenched my fists. I should have searched, she whispered. I should have fought harder. I should have. Grandma, I said, grabbing her hand. You didn't know. She looked at me with eyes full of guilt. That's the thing, Ivy, she said. I didn't know, because I didn't try. The silence after that felt thick. Then Grandma wiped her face with the back of her hand and stood again. She walked to her closet. She reached up and pulled down a showbox from the top shelf. What's that? I asked. Grandma opened it and pulled out an old photograph. It was her and a man I recognized immediately, even though I'd never seen him before. Jonah. He had deep brown skin, a sharp jawline, and kind eyes. He was holding a trumpet in one hand and Grandma's hand in the other. They looked like love, like the kind of love that made you believe in miracles. Grandma touched the photo gently. He was real, she whispered. Then she looked at me. Ivy, she said, voice suddenly firm. Go get my phone. I blinked. Your phone? Yes, she said. Now. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed her phone off the counter. When I came back, Grandma was already opening the suitcase again. She was pulling out letters, photos, papers, stuffing them into a small bag like she was preparing for war. Grandma, I said, handing her the phone. What are you doing? Grandma looked up. I'm going to Chicago, she said. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Chicago? I yelled. Grandma, you're like 78. Grandma's eyes flashed. I'm 76, she corrected sharply. That's still old, I argued. Grandma pointed at the letter. He's alive, she said. And if I don't go now, I will die without knowing. My chest tightened. But what about Mom? I asked. Grandma's expression softened slightly. We'll tell her, she said. But not yet. I frowned. Why not? Grandma's jaw clenched again. Because your mother is like me. What do you mean? Grandma looked at the suitcase. She doesn't like storms. She likes calm. She likes things that make sense. Grandma turned back to me. And this doesn't make sense. She unlocked her dresser drawer again and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were cash bills. Grandma, I whispered. You've been saving money? Grandma nodded. For emergencies. This is an emergency? I asked. Grandma stared at me. Love is always an emergency, she said. My throat tightened. Then Grandma grabbed the phone and started typing. What are you doing? I asked. Booking tickets, she said. Right now? Yes, she said. Right now. I watched her hands move quickly. She was shaking, but she didn't stop. Then her face changed. What? I asked. Grandma frowned. I can't see these tiny letters. I snatched the phone gently. Let me. She handed it to me. I opened the travel app and searched flights to Chicago. There was one leaving the next morning. Grandma, I said, there's a flight at 9:10 a.m. Grandma nodded. Book it. My eyes widened. For you? For us, Grandma said. I froze. Us. Grandma stared at me. You're coming with me, she said like it was obvious. I swallowed. Grandma, I'm 12. So? She said. You're brave. I didn't know what to say. My stomach filled with fear and excitement at the same time. But Mom will. Grandma lifted a hand. I'll handle your mother. I booked the tickets. When the confirmation email popped up, Grandma stared at it like it was a prophecy. Then she sat down on the bed again, suddenly looking exhausted. I can't believe it, she whispered. I sat beside her. Grandma, I said gently, what if Jonah doesn't want to see you? Her face tightened. I deserve that, she whispered. What if he's angry? I deserve that too, she said. What if he's moved on? Grandma's eyes filled again. I hope he has, she whispered, because he deserved happiness. Then she looked at me, but selfishly she added, voice cracking, I want to see his face one more time. My heart shattered. That night, Grandma barely slept. I lay on the guest bed in her room, watching her silhouette in the moonlight. She sat at her dresser, holding Jonah's photo like it was a prayer. At a.m., I heard her whisper, I'm sorry. At a.m., I heard her whisper, I didn't know. At a.m., I heard her whisper, please still be alive. I turned over and pretended not to hear, because some grief feels too sacred to witness. The next morning, Grandma wore a long gray coat, her hair pulled back neatly, her red lipstick applied like armor. She looked like a woman about to face her past. When Mom came to pick me up for school, Grandma met her at the door. Linda, Grandma said calmly, I need to talk to you. Mom smiled. Sure. What's up? Grandma glanced at me. Then she looked back at my mother, and she said the words that changed everything. I'm going to Chicago. Mom blinked. What? Grandma's voice stayed steady. I'm going to Chicago, she repeated. And Ivy is coming with me. Mom's smile vanished. Absolutely not, she snapped. Grandma lifted her chin. It's already booked. Mom stared at her like she didn't recognize her. What is going on? Mom demanded. Why would you? Grandma took a deep breath. Then she said, because Jonah is alive. Mom's face turned white. And in that moment, I realized my mother had known the name Jonah after all. She just never said it. The truth Mom never told. The moment Grandma said Jonah's name, my mother's face changed in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't just surprise. It was fear. The kind of fear that comes from a memory you've buried so deep you forget it's still alive until someone digs it up. Mom's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes flicked from Grandma to me, then back to Grandma, as if she was trying to figure out if this was a cruel joke. But Grandma Eliza didn't joke about storms. Where did you hear that name? Mom finally whispered. Grandma's gaze stayed steady. In a letter. Mom's throat bobbed as she swallowed. A letter from who? Grandma hesitated. Then she said, Rose. That name hit Mom like a slap. Mom stepped back, gripping the doorframe. Rose? Rose Walker? Grandma nodded once. Mom let out a shaky laugh, but it didn't sound like humor. It sounded like pain trying to disguise itself. She's still alive? Mom asked. Grandma's eyes hardened, apparently long enough to ruin my peace one last time. Mom's voice rose. You can't just take Ivy and run off to Chicago. Grandma leaned forward. Linda, I'm not running. I'm finally walking towards something. Mom shook her head quickly. No, this is crazy. Grandma cut her off. This is my life. Mom's eyes flashed. And I'm your daughter. Grandma's face softened for a second, but then the steel returned. And I spent half my life protecting you from my mistakes, Grandma said quietly. Now I need to face them. Mom's voice cracked. You think I don't know about Jonah? I froze. Grandma's eyes narrowed. You knew? Mom laughed bitterly. I knew enough. Grandma stared at her like she was seeing her for the first time. Mom turned away, pressing her palm against her forehead like she was trying to hold herself together. Then she whispered, I was 16 when I found the suitcase. My heart jumped. Grandma went still. Mom looked at her, eyes glossy. I found it in your closet. I opened it. I read your letters. I saw his photo. Grandma's mouth opened slightly, shocked. Mom's voice trembled. And I cried. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Grandma whispered, Linda. Mom shook her head. You never told me. You never trusted me with it. But I still found it. Grandma's shoulders sagged, like the weight of that confession landed on her chest. Mom turned toward me, then back to Grandma. I promised myself, Mom said, that I would never let that story touch Ivy. I blinked. What? Why? Mom's eyes softened at me. Because it broke my mother. Her voice cracked on the last word. It broke her, Mom repeated. And I didn't want it to break you too. Grandma's jaw tightened. Linda, I'm not broken. Mom's eyes flashed with anger. Yes, you are. The room went silent. I felt like I was standing between two storms. My mother's storm and my grandmother's storm. Grandma's voice turned sharp. You think because I cried in my kitchen sometimes when you were little, that means I was broken? Mom stepped forward. No, I think because you kept your heart locked away for 50 years. That means you were broken. Grandma stared at her. Then she whispered, I was surviving. Mom's face crumpled. And you think survival is enough? Mom asked softly. Grandma didn't answer. Mom took a shaky breath. Do you know what it was like, Mom said, voice trembling, to grow up watching you stare out the window every night, like you were waiting for someone who would never come? I gasped. Grandma's eyes widened slightly, like she hadn't realized anyone had noticed. Mom continued, voice rising with emotion. Do you know what it was like to hear you humming sad songs while you cooked? Like you were singing to a ghost? Grandma's lips trembled. Mom's eyes filled. You think you hid it. You think you protected me. But I felt it. I lived inside your sadness. Grandma's face softened, and for the first time she looked guilty. Mom wiped her tears angrily. And now, Mom said, you want to go to Chicago and rip open everything again? Grandma whispered, he's alive. Mom flinched at the words. That doesn't matter, Mom snapped. Grandma's eyes flashed. It matters to me. Mom looked at her exhausted. Why now? Grandma's voice turned quiet. Because I'm running out of time. That sentence hit the air like a bell. Mom froze. I froze. Grandma didn't say it dramatically. She didn't say it to scare us. She said it like it was a fact she had accepted. Mom's voice went small. What do you mean? Grandma looked away. Then she sighed, like the truth had been sitting in her chest for too long. I went to the doctor last month, she said softly. Mom's face tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Grandma didn't answer that. She just continued. They found something, Grandma said. In my lungs. My stomach dropped. Mom's eyes widened with panic. What kind of something? Grandma's voice stayed calm, but her fingers twisted together in her lap. A tumor, she said. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Mom whispered, cancer? Grandma nodded once. Mom staggered backward like she'd been punched. No, Mom whispered. No, no. Grandma reached out, but Mom pulled away, shaking her head. You can't leave, Mom cried. You can't just leave me. Grandma's eyes filled with tears too. I'm not leaving you, Grandma whispered. I'm leaving fear. Mom covered her mouth. I stood there, frozen, my chest tight, my mind screaming. Grandma was sick? My grandma, my strong, stubborn, warm grandma, was sick? Mom sank into the chair by the door, sobbing quietly. Grandma watched her, pain etched into every line of her face. Then Grandma looked at me. Ivy, she whispered, I want you to come because I want you to see something. I swallowed hard. See what? Grandma's eyes shone. I want you to see what love looks like when it survives, she said. My throat tightened. Mom lifted her head, eyes red. You're using Ivy. Grandma's gaze snapped to her. No. Mom's voice cracked. Then why bring her? Grandma's voice turned fierce. Because Ivy deserves to know that women are allowed to have unfinished stories. Mom stared at her. Grandma continued, voice shaking with emotion. I spent my whole life teaching Ivy to be polite, to be careful, to be good, Grandma said. But no one taught me to be brave. And I don't want Ivy to grow up thinking bravery is optional. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Mom wiped her face, breathing hard. Then she whispered, I can't stop you. Can I? Grandma shook her head slowly. Mom looked at me, and her expression softened. You stay close to her, Mom said, voice trembling. You hear me? Don't let her push herself too hard. I nodded quickly. I promise. Mom stood up, walked to Grandma, and hugged her so tightly it looked like she was trying to hold her in place. Grandma hugged back. For a moment, the room was filled with nothing but quiet, sobbing, and the sound of three hearts breaking and healing at the same time. Then Mom pulled away, wiping. She looked at Grandma and said, if Jonah is alive, and he really thought you abandoned him. Grandma's lips trembled. Mom whispered, that means he suffered too. Grandma nodded, tears falling freely now. I know, she whispered, and that's why I have to go. The airport smelled like coffee and rushing people. Grandma walked slowly, leaning slightly on her cane, but her eyes were sharp, focused. She looked like a woman on a mission. I held her hand as we waited at the gate. Grandma kept checking her purse like she was afraid the letter might disappear. Grandma, I said softly, are you scared? She looked at me. Yes, she admitted. Then she smiled slightly. But I'm more scared of dying without trying. We boarded the plane. As it lifted into the sky, Grandma pressed her forehead against the window and whispered Jonah's name like a prayer. I watched her, feeling like I was witnessing history. Not the kind of history in textbooks. The kind of history that lives in families. The kind that shapes generations. When we landed in Chicago, the air was colder than home. Wind slapped my cheeks as we stepped outside. Grandma shivered, but she didn't complain. We took a taxi to the south side. The city looked different than anything I'd ever seen. Tall buildings, busy streets, people moving fast like they had somewhere important to be. The taxi stopped in front of a brick church with a tall white cross. St. Bridget's Church. Grandma stared at it like she was staring at a dream. Her hands trembled. This is it, she whispered. We walked inside. The church smelled like old wood and candle wax. It was quiet except for the faint sound of music. A trumpet. My heart stopped. Grandma froze in the doorway like her feet had turned to stone. The trumpet sound floated through the hall, slow, soulful, aching. It sounded like someone singing through metal. Grandma's eyes filled instantly. We followed the sound, down a hallway, past stained glass windows, into a small music hall. And there on a stage stood a man with silver hair and a trumpet in his hands. He was older, his shoulders were broader, his face was lined with time. But even from far away, I could tell he was Jonah. Grandma's lips parted. The trumpet song ended. The man lowered the instrument and wiped his forehead. Then he looked up. His eyes scanned the room casually, until they landed on Grandma. And then, everything changed. His face went still. His trumpet slipped slightly in his hand. His eyes widened, like he was staring at a ghost. Grandma whispered, barely audible. Jonah. The man took one step forward, then another. Then he whispered, voice shaking like it was breaking apart. Eliza? The song that finally came home. For a moment, nobody moved. Not Jonah, not Grandma, not even me. It felt like time itself held its breath, like the whole world stopped just to watch the souls recognize each other. After 50 years of silence, Jonah's lips trembled. Eliza? He whispered again, softer this time, like saying her name too loudly might make her vanish. Grandma stood frozen, her cane shaking in her hand. Her eyes were wide and wet, and her mouth was slightly open like she was trying to speak, but her body didn't remember how. Then she took one step forward. Her voice came out like a broken prayer. Jonah. He blinked hard, like he was trying to clear a dream from his eyes. Then he took a step off the stage, and another, until he was standing only a few feet away from her. His chest rose and fell fast. His eyes searched her face like he was looking for proof that she was real. I don't understand, Jonah whispered. How are you here? Grandma swallowed, her throat working hard. I came, she said, voice trembling. I came because her words died, because Jonah's face suddenly twisted with pain. His voice rose, sharp and wounded. Why? He demanded. Why now? Grandma flinched like he'd slapped her. Jonah's eyes filled with tears that looked angry. You left me, he said. The words hit the room like thunder. My stomach twisted. Grandma's lips trembled. No, she whispered. Jonah, I didn't. Yes, you did, Jonah snapped. His voice echoed in the empty hall. I watched him, shocked. He didn't look like a sweet old musician anymore. He looked like a man who had been holding his heartbreak in his hands for decades. You vanished, he said, voice breaking. You disappeared like I meant nothing. Grandma shook her head violently. No, Jonah. They took you. Jonah froze. What? He whispered. Grandma's voice cracked. They took you, my father's man. Jonah's eyes widened slowly, like the truth was forcing its way into him. I woke up in a stranger's house, Jonah whispered. I couldn't walk. I couldn't play. I couldn't. He swallowed hard. And all I could think about, he continued, voice shaking, was you. Grandma stepped closer, tears streaming. I thought you were dead, she whispered. Jonah stared at her. Then his face crumpled. Dead? He whispered. Grandma nodded. My father told me you ran away, she said. He told me you didn't love me. He told me you used me. Jonah's jaw clenched. I loved you, he whispered fiercely. I loved you more than my own breath. Grandma sobbed. I know, she whispered. I know now. Jonah looked at her like he didn't know whether to hate her or hold her. Then he whispered, I wore your ring until it cut into my skin. Grandma's hand flew to her mouth. Jonah slowly lifted his left hand, and there it was, a silver ring, old and scratched, but still there, still on his finger. Grandma let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. She reached for his hand like she was afraid it would disappear. Her fingers touched the ring gently, and Jonah closed his eyes like he couldn't handle the feeling. You kept it, Grandma whispered. Jonah's voice broke. I couldn't take it off. Grandma's body shook. I'm sorry, she cried. Jonah, I'm so sorry. Jonah opened his eyes again. He stared at her for a long time. Then he whispered, why didn't you look for me? That question was quieter than his anger, but it hurt more. Grandma's shoulders collapsed. I was scared, she admitted. I was young. My father, he controlled everything. He threatened me. He threatened my family. Jonah's eyes softened slightly, but his pain remained. And then you married, he whispered bitterly. Grandma flinched again. Yes, she said. I married. Jonah looked away, jaw tight. I had to, Grandma whispered. My father forced me into it. Henry Caldwell. Jonah's face twisted with disgust. Grandma's voice broke even more. But Jonah, I never loved him. Jonah's eyes snapped back to her. Grandma continued, tears pouring. I never loved anyone after you, she said. I lived in a house with a man who owned my body but never owned my heart. Jonah stared at her like he couldn't breathe. Then his voice dropped. And your daughter? He asked. Grandma nodded slowly. She's mine, Grandma said. But Henry raised her as his. Jonah's eyes filled again. She has your eyes, he whispered. Grandma smiled through tears. She has your stubbornness too. Jonah let out a shaky laugh that turned into a sob. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached out and pulled Grandma into his arms. Grandma let out a cry and clung to him, like she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. They held each other tightly, two old hearts finally finding the place they had lost. I stood there, tears sliding down my face, watching love return home. After a long time, Jonah pulled back slightly, still holding her. His voice was quiet now. I hated you, he admitted. Grandma nodded, tears falling. I know. I hated you so much, Jonah whispered, because I couldn't stop loving you. Grandma sobbed again. I never stopped either, she whispered. Jonah looked down at her hands. Then he noticed the cane. His eyes narrowed. Eliza, he said slowly. What's wrong? Grandma stiffened. I saw it, the way her body tensed, the way her eyes flickered with fear. Jonah's gaze sharpened. Eliza, he repeated, voice firm. What's wrong? Grandma swallowed hard. Then she whispered, I'm sick. Jonah's face went pale. What? He breathed. Grandma looked away. I have cancer, she said quietly. The word felt like it shattered the air. Jonah stumbled backward slightly, like the truth physically hit him. No, he whispered. No, no. When the song ended, Jonah lowered the trumpet, breathing hard. Grandma stood up slowly. She walked to him, and without saying a word, she kissed his cheek. Jonah closed his eyes. They stayed like that for a moment, the souls finally touching after half a century. Then Grandma turned to me. Ivy, she whispered. Thank you. I shook my head, crying. No, Grandma, thank you. A week later, Mom came to Chicago. She walked into Jonah's apartment stiffly unsure. Jonah stood politely nervous. Grandma stood between them like a bridge. Mom stared at Jonah for a long time. Then she whispered, So you're Jonah? Jonah nodded gently. Yes. Mom's voice cracked. You were real. Jonah's eyes softened. I was. Mom covered her mouth, tears spilling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry my grandfather did that to you. Jonah shook his head. It wasn't your fault. Mom looked at Grandma. And you? Mom whispered, voice shaking. You carried this alone. Grandma nodded. Mom stepped forward and hugged Grandma tightly. Then unexpectedly, she hugged Jonah too. Jonah froze for a second, then hugged her back. And in that moment, I realized something. Some stories don't just heal one heart. They heal entire families. Months passed. Grandma's treatment began. Jonah went with her to every appointment. He held her hand through chemo. He brought her soup. He played trumpet softly in the hospital room when she couldn't sleep. Sometimes, Grandma would smile at him like she couldn't believe life gave her this second chance. And sometimes she would cry because she wished she had more time. One night, Grandma called me to her bedside. Her skin looked pale, but her eyes were bright. Ivy, she whispered, bring the suitcase. I carried it into the room. Grandma placed her hand on it gently. Then she looked at Jonah. I don't want this locked anymore, she whispered. Jonah nodded. Grandma looked at me. Open it, she said. I unlocked it slowly. Grandma reached inside and pulled out the red scarf, the photos, the letters. She handed Jonah the tin box with the ring. Then she handed Mom the stack of Rose's letters. Mom stared at them, shocked. Grandma whispered, I don't want storms passed down in silence anymore. Mom's tears fell. Jonah's hand squeezed Grandma's. Grandma smiled. And then she whispered something I will never forget. Love doesn't always come on time, she said. But when it comes, it's still love. Jonah leaned down and kissed her forehead. I'm here, he whispered. Grandma closed her eyes, peaceful. And for the first time, the suitcase didn't look like a guard. It looked like a goodbye. A goodbye to pain. A goodbye to silence. A goodbye to a life half lived. Because Grandma Eliza finally got her ending. Not perfect. Not long enough.